August 11th, the Eagles take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage starts at 6 p.m. A lot of storylines and battles, and we've got an entirely new look to training camp, Barrett. And, of course, Chip Kelly's out, Doug Peterson's in. What are some of the main differences that you've already noticed about the new regime against the old regime?
Well, the biggest thing I think is back to basics. I think it's back to them going out and have a traditional practice as opposed to Chip Kelly's run and gun, and we'll get to it later on to try to help these guys understand what they're trying to do out on the field. And that's the biggest approach, that this team hasn't seen in a long time. The fact that they correct each other while they're out there. Coaches go up there, try to coach their guys up, stop them from running the same thing over and over again and then going into the classroom and change it, as opposed to them just going out there and just changing it right then and there so they know what they did wrong, give them the help that they need right there instead of going into the classroom. And that's the biggest thing I can see.
All right, let me get your opinion, Barrett. Where you think some of the biggest battles are on this team? Because one thing I didn't like about the Kelly era really was it seemed like guys got handed things. Alan Barbary, you're the left guard. Andrew Gardner, you're the right guard. It didn't seem that there was ever competition for spots. So where do you see competition this year?
Well, you know what? A lot of the times, if you look back and really evaluate what Chip Kelly did was, guys were handed their position. I don't see Alan Barbie being too more better than, like a guy like Andrew Gardner, but he was better, as a guard. Yeah, yes, he is an upgrade from Gardner. But I will say this: at least he's going to have to, compete for that right guard position. The rookie third-round choice. He's coming in from Oregon State. He's going to compete for the position. They brought in Wisniewski. He's in there right now for Brandon Brooks. And, they are guys that now have a decent amount of competition, a decent amount of depth at the offensive line. I think the biggest competitive position you can go to is probably corner. Guys are out there trying to go. I mean, last year, Rowe played well, but, second half of the season when, throwing there when Carroll went down. But I will say this, Ron Brooks has definitely made a difference at the nickel corner position and on the outside. He's kind of pushing Rowe out of the whole situation. He's playing well. He's forced Rowe to go out there and really earn the spot as opposed to getting given the spot from how he played last year. You look at McKelvin, Lewis McKelvin came in and kind of solidified himself as the number one corner on the team, even better than Nolan Carroll, who was the number one corner on the team last year. So I think that's the most competitive spot. You still have guys like Jalen Watkins out there. You have Jalen Mills out there. These guys are out there trying to compete for the same spot. So I can't say that it's better, but it's way more competitive than it was in years past.
No doubt. Barrett Brooks is with us. Barrett, one spot that was a problem last year, I think I saw this morning a tweet that Sam Bradford, almost 8% of his passes were dropped last year. I mean, that's just almost inconceivable to look back at that and talk about how many drops they had as a team last year. How have the wide receivers come along so far in this season?
Well, if they keep 5 receivers, I'm looking at Josh Huff being the odd guy out. He might be the odd man out. He was one of Chip's guys. He didn't necessarily fit in with what this regime wants or they need at this point. You got a guy like Givens who played with Sam Bradford, a speed guy that can take the top off the defense. You got a guy like Randall come in and playing consistent. That's the biggest thing. They need consistent. Guys going to catch the ball. Of course, Matthews is going out there and having an excellent camp. He's catching everything that's thrown at him. He's being that focal point that Sam Bradford's looking for to be that go-to receiver. I'm looking for the number one pick last year. I need for him to do something. He set himself apart. He's got to be the guy that they look for big plays. And I don't know if he's done it enough in this training camp, but he's got a lot to look forward, a lot to look up to.
Barrett, by the way, that number, Sam Bradford receivers dropped 7.8% of his passes last year. That's the highest rate in the entire league. I mean, is that number...
That's unbelievable.
7.8. Is that number like, is that... Have you ever been on a team where the drops were such a problem?
Absolutely not. I was on teams like my third year in the league, and we had guys. We would go complete practice without a guy dropping the ball. I remember one time we went through a whole week without one drop, and we had guys that took that seriously. I mean, come on, one drop out of not one drop out of a whole week. And, that just comes with leader. We had Irving. Irving Fryer would make sure, we go through a practice. Hey, nobody drops anything. I'm talking about running backs, tight ends. Nobody drops anything. I want a perfect practice. And we would go a week without dropping one ball. And to think that 7.8%, what did you say, 7.8?
7.8%.
7.8% these guys dropping. That's inconceivable. And everybody wants to talk about Sam Bradford being a quarterback. How about those drops? I mean, you even give me half of those drops that they dropped. I guarantee you can add, at the very least 1.5 games to the overall record last year.
Not only that, you would probably look at his numbers a lot differently at the end. Let me get your thoughts on the whole quarterback situation. There's people that want to know why Wentz has been, Wentz was told, you're not playing, basically. We don't want to play you this year. Do you like that philosophy? How do you look at this whole quarterback situation as we are now into camp where, it was a mess before, Barrett. There was a mess the way that it all, with the holding, wanting to be traded and trading up. And, it looked like this was going to be a disaster. Has it played out okay?
Well, I think that it has. Like it or not, if you put Carson Wentz in the next draft next year or the year before, I don't think he garners the number 2 pick in the draft. I think because this draft was unique in the aspect he was the second best quarterback in the draft, so he went number 2. The likelihood that he'll be ready to play is kind of far-fetched. I know people are saying at the end of the season, he's going to be ready to play and he should get an opportunity to play. At this point, from what I see, he's just not ready. I mean, just to be honest, he's not ready to play as far as mechanics, as far as his overall knowledge of how to play the game, as far as reading defenses. We're talking about defenses that, Sam Bradford's going to have a problem picking up. When they bring blitz, these fire zones, everybody thinks it's going to be a walk in the park against Cleveland the first game. Cleveland has an excellent defense. They run the same defense, a 3-4 defense that we ran in Pittsburgh. They are the same coaching staff that Eddie had in Pittsburgh, so these guys know how to blitz a quarterback. They know how to run his own blitz. They know how to confuse even the most veteran quarterbacks like maybe a Brady. They can play defense. I don't know about the other side of the ball is still getting their quarterback situation nailed down, but on defense, they will be ready to play. They will be ready to compete, and they're going to be a team to be reckoned with in the AFC North. This is not a pushover Cleveland team that they played before. So I don't want everybody to just get it, all riled up because it's going to be a closer game than they think against a Cleveland team. This is not your dad's Cleveland team. This is a very, very good defensive-minded Cleveland team that just brought in an offensive-minded coach that helped the offensive side of the ball. I'm telling you right now, this is going to be a hard game, and the Eagles are going to have to go out there and earn their pay against this Cleveland defense.
Let me get your take on Bradford. What's impressed you so far, with him in this camp? Because, haven't heard a whole heck of a lot of, glowing remarks. Not that he's been awful, but what has stood out about Sam Bradford from the times you've seen him?
Well, sometimes no news is good news. I mean, he's going out there. He's being very efficient. He knows he's getting the offense, a lot faster than people thought he was going to get it. He understands where his guys are going to be at, and he started building that, built that camaraderie with his receivers. Like I said, Randall's starting to, be good with him. If you look at, Matthews, he's already has a good sense of, how he plays the game. So now as he goes further, these guys are only going to get better. Zach Ertz is going to be a go-to guy that's going to take the top off defense. He's going to be a guy that's going to look for big plays. All of these guys have played with Sam Bradford before, which is only going to make him bigger. So you don't hear the glaring, oohs and ahs, him going down the field with the deep ball or anything like that. But he does have command of this offense, which will only make them better as they go forward, because if they get a running game, Ryan Matthews comes back and be healthy, that will only help him, because that means you got to bring a safety down, and you now have receivers to take the top off. Givens is a speedster. Randall's a guy that can get open, really, really good possession receiver. You have a good a good slot receiver in Matthews. These guys will be in sync. And I'm telling you this right now, and put your money in it. And I know people are going to be like, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But the offense may be better than the defense because I'm looking at the defensive side of the ball. They're going to be hard-pressed to stop the run. It's going to be hard for them to stop the run. At this point, the defensive side of the ball is a lot they're not as far ahead as I thought they were going to be at, and I think it's simply because these guys are playing out of position. Connor Baldwin is just not a defensive lineman. He is a linebacker. He thinks like a linebacker. Even though in a 4-2, when they rush the nickel package, when they rush the passer, you're asking a guy that is not going against 350-pound guys on a play-to-play basis. He's a guy that every once in a while went up against a 300-pound offensive lineman. He's used to playing against running backs and tight ends. He's going to have to battle for the entirety of a game against a guy that's 300 to 350 pounds. That's going to change your whole mindset on how you approach the game and his body. He's an older player also. His body is going to take a lot more punishment than he did when he was playing linebacker. So just letting you know, their concept is to rush the passer, and on the way to the passer, play the run. I don't know if they can do it at this point.
That's that 4-3 wide 9 kind of look that they saw a couple of years ago, with Fletcher Cox and Benny Logan in the middle there. Do you like this personnel though better than when they had Jim Washburn here?
I do like the personnel better with three guys. I like Curry being on the outside. Of course, I like Cox, and of course, I like Benny Logan. But I just don't see Connor Baldwin, Brandon Graham playing on a play-by-play basis against guys of that size. They're going to try to pick the weak link in offensive line. At this point, the defensive end opposite Curry is going to be the weak link. They're going to try him. And then at the linebacker position, when you play a wide 9, that just opens up those gaps even further. Now they're asked to cover a lot more real estate, cover a lot bigger gaps, and I don't know if they're going to be ready for it. You got a young guy in Hicks who's injury-prone. You got a guy like Michael Kendricks who's fast, and this is probably the most comfortable he'll be at playing linebacker because he needs to react, but he's also a guy that, gets hurt a lot. So, even though the scheme is conducive for the personnel they have, I don't know if they'll be able to stop the run. The teams are going to go in trying to run the ball as opposed to pass the ball, and this is all predicated on the guys up front being dominant in this defense.
Barrett Brooks is with us. You can see him weekday mornings on the Comcast Network, Breakfast on Broad, 6 to 8 a.m., with a lot more on the Eagles. And, of course, Barrett, I want to get your take on Hicks, too, because he's, to me, a guy that provided a spark to this defense. Does he look like that playmaking linebacker so far in the early stages of camp? Because I think he's a pretty important guy. If he can't play at that level again, he's a big question mark.
Well, I think that he can play at that level. In fact, I'm going to tell you the truth. I think he's going to be a little better than he was last year, which is going to be good. But this is a scheme that demands him being the guy in the middle. He's going to have to stay healthy. He's not going to be one of those guys who can be interchangeable within the defense. He has to be on the field for this whole thing to run. That's why I don't understand why Tulloch is not here, at least in camp, at least working him out. Even though he's an older player, he understands how to play this defense, and you need a guy like that to teach a younger guy like Hicks how to run this defense. They had a lot of problems, even though they had a defensive coordinator, Wonka Steele, who was an offensive lineman coach, but it was still hard to teach these guys how to play the Mike linebacker in that system because there's a lot more responsibility. A lot of the earnest of this defense is predicated on him being able to tackle as these guys rush the passers on draw plays, on things in the middle. They're going to be running angle routes, trying to get him one-on-one against tight ends and running backs. So he's got to step up to the table. And like I said, against the run, he has to cover a lot more ground, even though A-gap to A-gap will probably be the same, but those guys are going to be outside rushing, and Benny Logan and Fletcher Cox, so they're going to be trying to do their thing, and they're not going to be two-gapping or keeping defensive offensive linemen off him like they did last year. The defensive lineman will be privileged to get on him as they climb to the second level. He's got to be able to fight through blocks, duck under blocks, and that's when a lot of punishment on your body occurs. He's going to have to form up and fit against bigger guards, bigger tackles that are going to try to block him, as opposed to last year when the guys up front were two-gapping and holding defensive lineman up so he can make the play. They're not holding anybody up this time. They're coming straight at him. He's got to be able to adapt, hit these guys in the mouth, play off the block, or even avoid blocks to make plays.
A lot of good stuff from Barrett Brooks right now, former Pittsburgh Steeler, Philadelphia Eagle, won a Super Bowl with those Steelers. And Brandon Brooks missed a few practices now. And you also have Stefan Wisniewski in there. Do you anticipate that this offensive line will be significantly better than last year? Because that was a big problem for them last year.
I think they will be better, but anything's better right now than having Tobin in there, Matt Tobin in there, and having Dennis Kelly. I mean, those two guys are backups, and they're backups to backups at this point. So the fact you have Steve Wisniewski, a guy to come in and understands what it is to be a starter in the league, it started at guard and at center, that's even more of a backup situation where, you have a guy that's capable of playing, has some starts underneath his belt. He has over 70 starts underneath his belt. That's great backup that they have, great depth that they have right now, the guard and center position with him. Then you have a guy coming into Andrew Garner that they really like, going into the season last year, who started, differentiating himself at the right guard position, but it got hurt and dropped down on the depth chart. And then on the other side, you have a rookie guard from Oregon State. I don't know how to say his name, man. I'm not even going to act like I do. But he's going to come in and he's going to compete for that guard position. He's not ready to play yet, but you have solid guys to back up the inside three. Guard, center to guard, you have reliable backups. Only thing now is the tackle position. Who's going to play tackle? At this point, Dennis Kelly and Tobin are the backup tackles. I don't know if I can rely on that. If anything, I would take a guy like Alan Barbary and put him at a tackle, and then move in Wisniewski to whatever side he goes to. So I don't have any faith in them, but I do have a little faith in Barbary playing at tackle and being that swing tackle for the guys. And then on the inside, they're pretty good as far as depth.
Yeah, and one area, and Isaac Seumalo, he's the guy that they drafted in the third round.
Isaac Seumalo, that's his name. Isaac Seumalo.
Right, he's the guy they drafted in the third round, and he's going to at least get an opportunity to win the left guard spot. It's not going to just be handed to Alan Barbary. That's something that last year I thought he just was handed. Even if he would have won it, and maybe he was the best, competition makes a better player, and I don't know that they ever did that. But you got a lot of competition at running back here. Now, the running back position has evolved a lot where, can a guy like Wendell Smallwood just go in there and handle being an NFL running back as a rookie?
Well, he can pick up pass blocks and go in there and pass blocks, pick up the blitz. I think he'll be okay. He wants to play a physical game. I don't know if his body will allow him to do that. It's a little different when you're talking about doing that and you guys just have on shorts and no pads. But, I mean, he's pretty explosive running, as a runner. But I don't know about pass blocking and being able to pick up these bigger linebackers. I'll tell you the truth. Ryan Matthews has to be healthy. He has to go in this consistently healthy, or else it's going to be a long shot of the guys Kenyon Barner being a backup. I think he's okay. He's a feasible running back. He'll come in. I doubt it seriously if the play will drop dramatically when he does come in, but he's not a starter. He's not a consistent starter. He hasn't been a consistent starter since he left college. And another thing, he's one of Chip's guys. He hasn't earned it this time. He will definitely make the roster because he brings so much to the table as far as special teams, going in, playing hard, and when he does get a chance to play, he's going to have to shine a little bit simply because they're going to rely on him to be that second-team back. Sproles is a little older now, and not to say, that's my guy. He's a Kansas State guy that he couldn't get the job done. But throughout the course of the season, you don't want to beat him up. You want him to stay explosive. You want him to be fresh going into a game that he can be that guy that can come in and make an instant impact when he does come in, from passing to running the rock and on special teams. So you got to keep him fresh. Kenyon has to step up. If Ryan Matthews stays hurt and in all probability, look at his track record, he's going to do that. So he was my favorite last year. Like I said, I told everybody it's going to be a running back controversy last year when he did come into town because I knew he was better than Murray. I just think this year he has to prove that he's a consistent, healthy guy, and he'll be all right at the running back position.
Yeah, I was a guy who liked Matthews more than Murray last year as well, and I thought he outperformed him when he got the opportunity to play here. One other guy that gets a lot of attention now, entering his fourth season or his third season here, is Zach Ertz, and he's a guy that we all keep kind of waiting for. It even seems, Barrett, that he's getting annoyed by people asking him, "Is this the year for you? Is this the year?" And is it? Is this the year that we see Zach Ertz really break out in this offense? Is this a better fit for him than the Kelly offense?
As it should. He's going to be the Travis Kelce that Coach had when he was in Kansas City. Doug Peterson used Kelce as a guy to take the top off the defense. He was the big play guy. He knew that he could get one-on-one against linebackers, that he was faster in, and then going over the top against safeties and boxing those guys up and making the big catches against smaller safeties. So he's the X factor. We need him to be a good on offense, and Nelson Aguilar, last year's first-round draft choice, to be those guys that really have to come out of the box hard. They have to come out the box ready to play. There's no more time for them to go out, these guys to grow. They need to become crucial components in this offense. They have to, or else it's going to be a hard year for us to go through, just simply because there's a lot of responsibility put on those two to be the impact players going into this season.
All right. So far, this team, yesterday, I guess 18,000 there last year. There was about 43,000 there. It seems that expectations are kind of not too high. Is there a reason to be excited? Do you find something that should surprise fans out there? Because, Barrett, it doesn't seem like there is the same anticipation for Eagles football.
Well, it's almost like the old Andrew Reid. He went out there. He wasn't flashy. He didn't make things glamorous. He's a guy that went out there and worked hard, and that's what this team is doing. Practices have become more intense. They've become harder as far as in the aspect of being more physical, and that's the way Doug Peterson wants to have his team. He wants a tough, physical team that are in shape. Last year at this point, people were talking about these guys winning the Super Bowl, and that's simply because you had a dynamic coach and Chip Kelly. I got it. Everybody expected to be the new and improved coaching guru with his. Well, everybody caught up with that system, and it didn't turn out the way. At this point last year, he was the number 3 sports figure in the nation. I don't know if you guys remember that or not. He was ranked number 3 in the country as far as the number 3 attraction for sports figures. And, and I think that was the biggest thing why everybody was so enamored with the Philadelphia Eagles. They wanted to see what Chip Kelly could do. He got all his pieces. He had just got total control of the team. And, he was the GM of the team and coach of the team. So everybody wanted to see what he brought to the table. Well, they fell flat on their faces. This year, I think things are a little more tempered simply because Doug is just an average coach that's going to go out there, get his guys to give their most, give their all, give the most that they have from each player, because he's a player's coach. A whole different sense of how the Philadelphia Eagles are going to play is coming in this year. A physical team, a tough team. They're not worried about being these prima donnas. They're going to go out and work hard and give their all for a coach now that they respect, they can talk to, and they understand, as opposed to, Chip Kelly being this guy that nobody knew, nobody talked to, walked through the hallways, not saying anything to anybody. It's a whole different mindset. They're all about work now, and that's what they need to be in the first place.
There's no doubt Kelly, being the coach, added some intrigue and, some spotlight on this team. And you're right, they are now kind of an under-the-radar team. For you, Barrett, what's the ceiling of this football team right now? I mean, I know we got a long way. We still haven't played a preseason game. But you look at this talent on this roster, what is the ceiling, what is a successful season for this crew?
Well, I'm going to tell you the truth. The talent on this team probably puts them at 50-50, winning a as far as the talent. But if they play for their coach and leave all the naysayers, leave it out of their mind, you just go out there and just execute, I can see them winning that one extra game to get them and put them over to competing in that division. This is a weak division. We all see what's going on in Dallas. On the defensive side of the ball, they're very inefficient, but on the offensive side of the ball, they're going to be pretty good. If you look at the Giants, the defensive side of the ball, they improved a little bit, but you still don't know this is still the Giants, and of course the Eagles play well against the Giants. I think that, Washington is the team to beat simply because, their quarterback is stepping into another year as being a starter. They have a really good offense. Their tight end is pretty good. They have a good running game. They're the team to beat, and their defense is pretty good. So I don't think that they're too far ahead of what the Eagles are trying to do. The Giants, the Redskins, and the Cowboys are just weak enough that they can compete at the same level with the Eagles, and the Eagles at this point can compete with them.
All right, we'll have more from Barrett throughout the football season with Barrett's breakdown here of Eagles training camp. They have the day off tomorrow. They'll put they'll be back on the field on Wednesday, so off day tomorrow for the Birds. It's the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks, Barrett.
Appreciate it, man. Well, we look forward to doing this every week.